Good morning! We're going to do a little food preservation today. We just have a couple of lingering things from the garden. We've got some corn. Steve picked the last few ears of corn, so I'm going to blanch those and then freeze those. Then he picked a couple 5-gallon buckets of apples up back, so we're going to make some apple pie filling and possible maybe a couple of apple crisps for the freezer. So join me today as we cook in the kitchen today at the Homestead. Before we get started, I need to put away these dishes so that I have the countertop clear. I do have an apple peeler core slicer that goes on to my KitchenAid as an attachment, so I'm going to try that out today, and we'll get cleaned up and get ready to go. So this is the KitchenAid attachment that I bought the other day, so I'm kind of excited to try it out. It goes right onto my KitchenAid and will core, peel, and slice the apples. I have a manual one. Actually, I have a couple of manual ones, and I've used them for many years. Just gonna try this one out as it is electric, and I think that it might just expedite the process just a little bit. So give it a try.
Just trying to figure out the instructions and all of the parts. It for sure had quite a few different attachments. I was quite surprised and reasonably priced. I'll leave a link to it in the description box below.
Fill up the water so that I can get that boiling for the corn. It doesn't take very long to blanch corn once it's boiling. And then I'm going to take it off the cob and get it flash frozen. Do is just fill this up with water so that we can wash the apples.
I don't have to be too particular about washing them, just mostly getting the stems off them and rinsing them off as they're going to be peeled anyways. This peeler actually came with a few different blades that you could choose the depth of your apples, which is kind of handy. I chose the medium size blade. So this first time I was peeling it and I thought I had the corer attachment on it, but apparently I didn't. So I peeled the entire apple, and then you'll see that I end up having to locate the corer and then go ahead and put that on after.
That looks pretty good. And there's nothing wrong with the inside of that apple. As I said, the outside did have some discoloration on it, but the insides are perfectly fine. So we're going to be making some apple pie filling with these. And I think I'm going to fill this with water, put a little lemon juice in it so my apples don't turn brown. Keep it on, yes.
So I just continue to peel the apples. It took me quite a while. I want to say probably a total of 2 hours to peel all of those apples in the two 5-gallon buckets. I peeled quite a few, then I had to leave for an errand, and luckily I had had them soaking in the lemon water so they didn't discolor at all. And then I came home and continued to peel some more.
Stop it on your own, maybe.
One thing that was a little frustrating with this peeler was it didn't seem to get to the very end of the apple, so it seemed like it wasted a little bit of the apple. And I don't know if that was the setup of the threads or not, but that was a little frustrating. So I moved to blanching the corn. I'm taking the cobs of the corn and just dipping it into the boiling water.
So I'm going to blanch the ears of corn around 9 minutes because these are about medium size. Small ears you do about 7 minutes. So I'm just putting it into the boiling water and then going to make sure that the water comes back to boiling. Once it's back to boiling, I'm going to set my timer for 9 minutes and it will be ready to go into the freezer once it cools. Good. I think I've got almost room enough for all of it. Yep, just enough. Okay, great. A great way to get corn off of the cob is to go ahead and use this Angel Food cake pan. You just set the top of the ear of the corn here, and then you can peel it right down. I also use a corn cob peeler. Looks just like this. Bought it off Amazon. I'll link it down below in the description box. But this works so well, so much easier to do than a knife. It really peels them so quickly. I'm going to put it directly into a vat of ice water to cool it down. I want to stop the cooking process as quick as I can.
So I don't think I really thought through the whole tray filled with ice water on my counter, because as you'll see in a minute, we had a little bit of a disaster.
Yikes. Guess I'm overflowing. Oh my gosh. Ah! Okay, I'm overflowing a little bit. Okay. Let's clean up.
So after a quick cleanup, we're ready to start taking the kernels off the cobs.
So we're just going to go ahead and put this top of the ear right in this hole, and I'm going to take my tool and it literally just slides right down, cleans it right off, nice and right to the cob, so it works really well. So all you have left is this, and you put it in your bucket.
As you can see, this corn cob peeler is extremely efficient. It works so well. I was managing to get this corn done in no time at all. Even though some of the corn comes off in more like sheets of connected corn, it still is perfectly fine and tastes absolutely delicious.
And there we go. That was probably 25, 26 ears of corn, and it only took a minute or two to get it all off the cob.
So now I'm just going to bag it up. I'm actually going to be using food saver bags. They are sealed on one end when you buy them. I'm measuring 2 cups per bag because that's about what we use at a meal. And then I'm just sealing them in the food saver. I'm not actually taking all of the air out. I'm just making a quick seal. Sometimes corn is so watery that it becomes a little problematic to take all of the air out of the bags, but it works just fine. So here I'm just labeling all the bags with the date. I just do a quick date. I don't have to label the contents of what's in the bag. Obviously we can see that, but putting the date is very helpful, especially if you're not going to eat it right away. So for this apple pie filling for the canner, it has several ingredients, and I had already put it together before realizing that I didn't turn on my camera. So I'm just going to kind of describe what I put into the filling for the flavoring, and then I will link the recipe in the description box below. But I put in for 6 pounds of apples, and I did measure out the apples. They were all peeled and cored. I put in 4.5 cups of white sugar, and then 1 tablespoon of ground cinnamon, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, a pinch of ground cloves, 2 teaspoons of salt. And then what you're seeing here is the cornstarch slurry that is added to the heated mixture in just a moment. Okay, so in a large pot over medium heat, I mixed the sugar, salt, cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg. I did add 5 cups of the water to that mixture, and I mixed that really well. I started heating that mixture up, and then while that was heating, I mixed 1 cup of cornstarch with the other 5 cups of water and made a real light slurry. It was not thick at all. And then I mixed that with the cinnamon mixture. And then I heated that up to a boil until it was thick. So it took about 10 minutes or so for the sauce to get thick and bubbly before we could actually put it into the jars. And then we realized we needed to make another batch of sauce because we had so many apples left over. But that's a great thing to have. So the process of adding the the sauce to the apples is you have to fill the jars up halfway with apples and then pour some sauce over the apples, and then go ahead and fill the rest of the jar up with the apples and then pour more sauce over that. So Steve and I both kind of worked at trying to fill the jars, and it seemed to work pretty well, but you just had to make sure that you debubbled the jar and then put enough sauce to cover the apples. We also got the canner filled with the water for the water bath canning for after we get our apples and sauce into the jars. So Steve and I have about 15 apple trees up back. A lot of them are Macintosh, and then some are Honeycrisp. And it didn't seem like the Honeycrisp were too prevalent this year, but we definitely got a lot of the Macs. So as you can see, now the mixture is starting to get nice and thick and bubbly. We take it off the stove here and just set it on the counter. We don't want it to cook any longer or be on a hot surface. So we're just having it on the counter so we can access it easily and bring our jars over to fill them. We probably could have and maybe should have put it onto the same counter that we had the jars, but it ended up just putting it on this counter, and then we just brought the jars over to it, but it worked out okay. I was thankful for Steve's help today. It really was quite a job. I had a lot more apples than I really thought I was going to have at the very beginning when I started peeling them. It seemed a little bit overwhelming, but after he came home and started helping me fill the jars and then add the sauce to it, it went by a lot faster. So here I'm just rinsing off the jars and making sure I get all the sticky residue off the base of the jar. We had already taken some vinegar on a paper towel and really went around the rims of the jars very well, because you want to make sure you don't have any sticky residue or the jars will not seal for you. So we had already done that. Prepared my apple crisp and put any leftover apples that I had in the container from the apple pie filling into these 3 pans, these 3 square aluminum pans. So I doubled the recipe, but I'm going to explain what the regular recipe ingredients would be. Mixed 2 tablespoons of sugar and 1 3/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon into the apples, and then in a separate bowl I mixed a cup of brown sugar, 3/4 cup of old-fashioned oats, 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, and a half cup of cold unsalted butter. And I diced the butter into small cubes and then sort of mashed it into the mixture before I spread it over the top of the pans. The apples had already been soaking in the lemon juice, so I didn't bother putting the 1.5 teaspoons of lemon juice that the recipe called for, because I felt like the apples had already been soaking in the lemon water anyways. So I'm just spreading out all the topping on top of the apples. And then I just wrapped the apple crisps up with a layer of saran wrap and then a layer of aluminum foil, and labeled the pans so that I would know what it was when I put it in the freezer. I always just put a note to thaw the apple crisp and then heat your oven to 350 and cook it for 40 minutes. So it was a pretty productive day. We got to blanch and freeze 26 ears of corn and then cut up, peel, and slice apples, and then making 15 quarts of apple pie filling and then 3 apple crisps. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new here or brand new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I'll be making a new video each week.